We come once more to look at 1 John chapter 1 verse 4, where he writes, "And we are writing these things so that our joy may be complete." So John wrote because he longed for this to happen in our lives as much as it was happening in his. And I'm really hoping and praying that just looking at this verse has just made such a difference in our lives as we've been looking at it over this last week. And we'll be finishing up looking at it tomorrow in our Lord's Day message. So the big question is this fullness of joy to be made complete in the future, in the life to come, or can we partake in it now? Well, certainly we will have complete joy in the life to come when we are made perfect in heaven. We look to Jesus, knowing that in heaven he rejoices fully with the Father and the Holy Spirit over his completed mission, and having that joy of seeing the fruits of all the works of his hands when he looks upon the redeemed. We look to Paul when he caught a glimpse of that joy when he was caught up in the third heaven that he writes about in 2 Corinthians 12 verses 1 to 4, caught up in paradise, where he heard such words that he as an earthly man may not utter. There therefore seems to be a greater joy awaiting us in heaven, which we can only catch a glimpse of here in this life. And if we look to Psalm 45, and we read a psalm there about the Messiah rejoicing over his church as a bridegroom rejoices over his bride. And in verse 7 of Psalm 45, we hear, "You have loved righteousness and hated wickedness. Therefore God, your God, has anointed you with the oil of gladness beyond your companions." So Christ's gladness, his joy, comes from loving righteousness and hating wickedness. The secret of his full and complete joy lies in his being as his Father is, the Holy One and the just. And everything that Christ did, he did to the glory of his Father. He did it willingly and he did it joyfully, delighting in his mission. He didn't need to be pushed or cajoled. Nothing could interfere with his walking in the light, as God is in the light. And that is the perfection of blessedness. Christ, a servant and a son, has that fullness of joy. So we get back to that question that we asked at the beginning. So are we able to have that fullness of joy in this life? And the answer is, well, yes, we are, in measure and in a growing measure. As our natures and our minds and our hearts are conformed to that of God, as our souls learn to see as he sees and feel as he feels. Let us hate sin as he hates sin, that we may seek righteousness and truth. Let us have that understanding of his will that we may carry it out and not fight against his will. And this is why Christ had fullness of joy, even when he had the tears of Gethsemane and the bitter cry of Calvary. So grow in this measure of joy as we grow in grace and in holiness. We grow in this measure of joy as we grow in grace and in holiness. The two go hand in hand. If though we are not carrying out God's will or yielding to him as a servant to the master, then misery will be our lot in life. How can we expect the joy of the Lord to be full and complete in our lives if we are not in the way of our God? If we are rebelling against him, going against him, fighting against him, how can his joy then be our joy? But misery ends and fullness of joy comes when we think and feel and wish and act as God does. So fullness of joy may be ours ours more and more and more. I just want to leave you with 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 18, where Paul says, "And we all, with unveiled face, beholding the glory of the Lord, are being transformed into the same image from one degree of glory to another. For this comes from the Lord who is the Spirit." We're being transformed into the same image from one degree of glory to another. We have that joy, and we keep on having more of that joy as we are being transformed into his likeness, into his image. And so take care, and God bless.